I worked for Mr. Trump for almost a year during the campaign. I was also one of his media surrogates. And whether you like Donald Trump or not, and obviously him and I have is separated and have a difference of opinion at this point in our lives. But I will say this about him. He had great political instincts. He saw something happening in our country. Perhaps it happens in Australia. It certainly has happened in the UK, where a generation of working class people have felt left out of the system. And so I'll speak for my family for a moment. I grew up in a aspirational working class family. And I would say over 35 years through globalization, all these political forces, et cetera, this working class aspirational family have sort of converted into economically desperational ones. President Trump saw that and he got ahead of that in 2016. And I think that the Democrats and the other Republican elites, if you will, did not see that. And so I always will give him credit for that. But I think where the president lost his way is when he got into the White House, he took a very defensive, almost insecure posture. By the time I got to the White House in July of 2017, it was like a shootout at the OK Corral was going on. You know, there were 3 or 4 different factions inside the White House. There was the Steve Bannon faction, the Reince Priebus faction, and the Jared Kushner faction. But I was alarmed by that because there wasn't a President Trump faction. These guys were shooting at each other in like a Mexican standoff. He hired me. He called me. I had said to him, listen, you know, I'm not fans of Bannon and Priebus, and they're going to give you a hard time. He called me and said, I'd like you to come down here and fix it. Of course, I made my series of mistakes, but you know, one thing I'm very proud of is Bannon. You know, when I was fired, Bannon got fired right alongside of me. General Kelly, who became a very close friend of mine, would tell you that Steve was fired on the same day, but he begged Kelly not to have him be blown out of the White House with me on that day. So they gave him a 2-week reprieve. But I think that really helped the country because Trump and Bannon together, that would have been a very nasty combination during COVID. I flew Air Force One 3 times. I did the White House press conference in front of about 50 million people. And I spent a lot of time with the president in the Oval Office when I was there. And I will say this, and I'm sure you'll get this, and so will your listeners and viewers, Greg. The hardest job in the world wouldn't even describe it. If you just read the presidential daily brief and I had a White House security clearance, you would be blown away by the magnitude of the dilemmas and the situations and the decisions. And I'll just say this one last point. If you're the president of the United States, that means 5,000 other people in that government could not make the decision. And it's on your desk. And it's a choice between this is going to be a really bad outcome or possibly a really bad outcome. And some of it is luck. And so I'm reluctant to sometimes overly criticize these people because once you're in the situation, you see the hot soup that they're actually in.